So hopefully you've heard about the Gutenberg editor and how WordPress will be adopting it as the primary way of creating and editing posts. If you haven't, thankfully you're watching my video. So to sum things up, the Gutenberg editor is currently a plugin that changes the page building and post creating experience. However, in a few months, WordPress will be replacing the current publishing experience with Gutenberg as soon as they deploy the WordPress 5.0 update. That means that in a few months, whenever WordPress updates, your visual and text editor are going to completely change. So the editing experience in the back end of WordPress is going to be very different than what you're looking at right now and what you're probably used to. Now, if you're like me, you're probably hesitant and a little nervous about the entire back end of WordPress changing, but I'm creating this video to not only put your mind at ease, but to show you some of the many possibilities that lie ahead with this new editor. Alright, so you've probably gotten a little notice in your WordPress dashboard that Gutenberg is coming, and WordPress gives you the option of testing the Gutenberg editor plugin out on your blog, or you can install the classic editor plugin, which allows you to keep the original backend experience up and running on your blog. Now, I highly recommend that you test the Gutenberg plugin on a demo property and not your main blog. However, if you don't have a demo property, it may be a good idea to install the classic editor plugin until you've fully vetted Gutenberg. Either way, Gutenberg is coming, and this video will show you how it works. Alright, so before we get started, let me show you what we're going to be making with this new editor. For this tutorial, I'm using the WordPress theme Kale, and I'll be creating a media-rich blog post using this new editor. And here's the post that we'll be creating. This particular post has multiple headings and content sections. There will be media galleries, embedded Instagram posts that are actually videos as well. It's a pretty cool feature. We're also going to be adding embedded GIFs. And if we keep scrolling, you'll see we're also going to add some embedded YouTube videos. And this is just a great feature to expand your reach if you have a YouTube channel. And I'm also going to show you how to add quotes. And then finally, you're even going to be able to embed your email opt-in form within the post. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and install the Gutenberg editor plugin, but again, this plugin isn't going to be a plugin after the WordPress 5.0 update. This will be how every single WordPress blog and website backend will operate in a few months. So let's install the plugin and activate it. So I'm going to click the Install Gutenberg Plugin button, and that's going to run for a few seconds, and then once it's ready, we'll click the Activate Gutenberg button. And again, this will take a few seconds to activate once it's installed. And then as soon as it's activated, it will take you to a sample post that was actually created with the new editor. Now, as you can see, it looks a lot different, but there are still some familiar aspects. The main change that is being implemented is the use of blocks, and I'll show you what that means in a few moments. But you'll also notice that another change lies within the actual back-end experience. And as I scroll down, you'll see what I mean. The entire visual editor has not only changed the way it looks, but it's changed the way you create content. The new implementation of the Gutenberg plugin alters the publishing experience, but I think it streamlines the design process and lets you create unique blog posts a lot easier and a lot faster. Alright, now that you have an idea of what it looks like, let's take a closer look at the new building blocks of the editor. So if you hover your mouse over the different areas of the sample post, you can see that each section is broken down into a specific type of block. We have different heading blocks, image blocks, paragraph blocks, etc. There's so much more to explore with the blocks. Now, the blocks are a new experience that really give you a lot of creative control over what your blog looks like. Now, before we dive in, you'll notice that the layout of the editor is super different, but like I said, it's kind of familiar. We still have our content section on the left, and then we also have our editing section on the right. You'll even still have access to the Yoast SEO plugin, even though it looks a little different, but the functionality is still the same. Simply click on the Yoast icon and you can edit your snippet directly from the toolbar. You can even scroll down towards the bottom of the post and access the Yoast SEO settings as if you were using the classic editor. Now, one thing I want to point out before we get started is that, as you probably already know from experience, a WYSIWYG editor is not always what you see is what you get. Meaning, there are times whenever you create something in the back end, but whenever you publish it, it looks super different. Now, the good news is that this new editing experience gives you a ton of flexibility and control over how your blog posts look. So, without further ado, let's get started. So first things first, let's create a new blog post. So on the left-hand side of the screen under Post, go ahead and click on Add New. And as you can see, our new editor looks a lot different than the old experience. Now, another thing I want to point out is that there are a few bugs that the developers are still trying to work out before the editor is deployed worldwide. With that being said, I'm going to show you a few of those bugs and how to work around them. Hopefully, when WordPress 5.0 update is live, the bugs will be fixed, but like I said, this video will show you how to work around those bugs in the meantime. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is give this post a title. And for every page in Post, the new editor already starts you off with two blocks. There's a title block and a paragraph block, which is where you'll type in your content. So where it says Add Title, place the cursor there and type the title of your blog post. And I'm calling this Sweet Tooth Cravings. Then you'll notice that we've run into our first bug, and that is that the permalink is not showing correctly. It should be displaying the post title within the URL, but it's displaying the page ID. Now, if we click the Change Permalinks button, it'll take us to the permalink settings page, and you can see that the permalinks are set to be the post name. However, when we go back to the post editor, it's still showing the permalink with the page ID. Now, this isn't a huge deal, but it's something that the developers are currently working on. Either way, the way around this issue is to simply save the post as a draft. So click the Save Draft icon in the upper right-hand side of the screen. And after it's saved, if you click on the title, you'll notice that the permalink is now displaying correctly with the post title within the URL. All right, moving on. Next, let's start adding content. So where it says Write Your Story, this is where you would place your cursor and begin typing. However, for the sake of time, I'm going to simply paste some dummy text, but you'll get the idea. Now, as you begin to write, it creates a block, and each section has the ability to contain a different type of block, so to speak. For example, this block is called a paragraph, and it's where you add text. Additionally, whenever you place your cursor within the block, you can see the outline of the block along with a toolbar that has additional editing options. And also, if you look on the right-hand side of the editor, we'll zoom out real quick. On the right-hand side, you can see even more editing options within the block as well. We'll play with this a little later on, but for now, I'm just going to add a few more blocks of text. So one way to add a new block is to simply press the Enter button, and this will create a new paragraph block where I'll paste the text. And I'll do that one more time so that we have 3 blocks of the paragraph block. And then let's preview this real quick. So click the Preview button. And the preview experience is the same. It opens a preview of the post in a separate tab. And we have our post title along with the 3 paragraphs of content. Looks pretty good. So let's go back to the editor and let's add a featured image. Now, I like to have a featured image above my content on every post. So let's do this before we start adding more content. Now, I should mention that this is another bug that I ran into, but the solution is the same. We'll save it as a draft and it'll be fixed. But let me show you what I mean. So to add a featured image, make sure you're on the document setting and click on the document tab on the settings toolbar. Then click on the featured image tab. And it's pretty much like the old experience. You go to the media gallery and you'll add an image. There we go. However, whenever we preview the post, you'll see the bug that we're going to run into. So let's preview it. The featured image isn't displaying within the post. Again, the fix here is to simply save the post as a draft. So we'll go back to the editor, save it as a draft. Then if we preview the post after it's been saved as a draft, the featured image should be displaying correctly above the content. Again, this isn't a huge deal, but it's something that will definitely be fixed whenever they deploy the WordPress 5.0 update in a few months. All right, next we're going to be adding a media gallery block within our post. Let's fast forward to the end of the video so you can see what we're going to be doing. So the next section of our post is going to contain a heading, some content, and then a 5-image media gallery. This is beautifully laid out in a 3-column design, and one thing that I want to add is that I've created some additional space between each heading within the post. That's because I feel like the extra white space makes things easier on the eyes and easier to scan as you're reading it. Plus, it's a new feature in the editor that really comes in handy. So back at our post, let me show you what I'm talking about. Traditionally, in order to add space between headings and text within a WYSIWYG editor, it would be a chore because the space you created in the editor wouldn't necessarily translate to the actual blog post. Plus, you'd be limited in terms of how much space you can make because you'd either be adding break tags in the HTML or you'd just be clicking enter on the keyboard to create the extra space. But now with the help of the blocks, you can have a ton of flexibility whenever it comes to adding additional space within your content. So the way we're going to achieve the extra space between our header and the content is to add a spacer block. So to add a block, on the upper left-hand side of the screen, there's a little circle plus icon. And clicking on that gives you the ability to add a new block. Once you do that, you'll see the different types of blocks that are available to add within the editor. So by default, it will display the most used blocks, but as you scroll down, you can see that there are different sections for the types of blocks that are available. So we're going to be adding the spacer block, so scroll down to the Layout Elements tab. Then when you click on it, you'll see the various blocks that are associated with that element. Again, we're using the spacer block, so click on the spacer icon. And then you'll see the new block has been added to our post, and it's creating some extra space after the text. Now, one thing I really appreciate about this particular block is that you have a ton of control over how much space you want to display. Simply click and drag and drop that blue dot up and down within the block to adjust the amount of space that you want after the text. As you can see, it's super flexible, super convenient. Now you can also adjust the space within the block on the right-hand side of the screen in the toolbar within the block settings. You can actually set the height in pixels, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I'll set it to 20 pixels. There we go. And again, if you click anywhere on the post and then hover your mouse over the spacer block, you can actually see an outline of the block that you just added. It's pretty cool. All right, next let's add our header. So we're going to be adding a header block. So once again, click the circle plus icon to add a new block. And then find the heading icon and click on it. There we go. And as you can see, we now have our heading block where we'll simply type the text we want to use for the heading. And again, I'm just going to type this in, media gallery. There we go. Now another thing I want to mention is that whenever you use these various types of text blocks, you'll notice that a toolbar opens up above them. This is similar to the WYSIWYG editor, but again, this gives you even more control because you can adjust and edit each block individually if you wanted to. Like for your headings, you can change the tag from H2, H3, and H4, all from this toolbar within the block. That's pretty convenient. All right, next I'm going to add a paragraph block since this is where I would normally be adding text. And I'm just going to paste some dummy text again. So click the plus circle icon, then find the paragraph block. There we go. We can see our block has been created. And again, I'm just copying and pasting some dummy text. I'll do this a couple times, but you get the idea. And for this example, I'm just pressing enter to create a new block. All right, next let's add the media gallery. So this time we're going to add the gallery block. So again, we're clicking the plus icon in the upper left hand side of the screen, and then select the gallery icon. There we go. Then you'll see the gallery block appear, and it's pretty straightforward. You can either upload images from your hard drive or you can add them from your media gallery. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image, add the images from the media gallery. So select media gallery, and then I'll select the images I want to use. You can really go nuts here, but I'm only selecting 5 to keep it simple. There we go. Then once you have your images, click the Create New Gallery button. And on the next screen, you'll actually have the option to add captions to the images. I'm skipping this for now and clicking the Insert Gallery button to actually create the gallery. Awesome. There we go. Now, another thing I love about this block is that you have a ton of creative control over how the images are laid out. Now, if you look on the right-hand side of the gallery, the right-hand side of the screen under the gallery settings, you'll see that you can change how many columns are used in the layout. And then sliding the dot will adjust the number of columns, and it gives you some options in terms of how the gallery will look in your post. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to leave it at 3. There we go. I like the way that looks. All right, so let's go ahead and preview this. So just like before, click the preview button to check it out. And if we scroll down, looks great. Instead of having to install a gallery plugin or spend a bunch of time trying to manually code the images within the HTML, this gallery block takes care of the design in a few quick clicks of the mouse. All right, moving on. Next, let's embed an Instagram post. All right, so if we fast forward to the end of the video real quick, you can see what the embedded Instagram post will look like within our blog post. It's pretty standard, but it's a pretty cool feature that will allow you to have a media-rich blog post. And having a media-rich blog post typically increases user engagement and the amount of time people spend on your blog. These are both good and important metrics whenever it comes to SEO and the overall user experience. All right, so back to the post. The new editor actually gives you a couple of different ways to embed code within the content. But before we do anything, I want to add a spacer after the media gallery because remember, I like having a little extra space between the different sections of the post for readability. And we're just doing the same thing. I'm going to set it as 20 pixels. And then again, just like earlier, I'm going to add another heading block. And I don't think I mentioned this, but I'm using H2 tags for my headings within the content. And again, we're just going to add the block. Calling this one Instagram posts. There we go. Next, I'm just going to add a few paragraph blocks with some text. Again, this is when you would be adding the paragraph block and you'd start typing out your content, but I'm just copying and pasting text for the sake of time. Perfect. Next, it's time to embed the post. Now, like I said, there are a couple different ways to go about this, but the most convenient way of using the embed block unfortunately has a bug in it. Hopefully WordPress will get this squared away whenever they release that 5.0 update, but let me show you the workaround you can do instead. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Food Network's Instagram page, since this is the Instagram post that I'm going to be using is from this page. And once I find the post I want to use, I'm going to click on it. And we're going to use that Reese's Peanut Butter Cup one there. Go ahead and click on that. And then to get the share options, click those 3 dots in the lower right-hand side of the post. And again, that's going to open up some different sharing options. And we're embedding this, so click the Embed tab. and then click that blue button where it says copy the embed code, and that'll automatically copy it. And then all we're going to be doing is we're just going to go back to the editor and we're going to embed this code. So we're going to add a block. And the block we're using is called custom HTML, since that code we copied is HTML. And you're simply just going to paste that code within the HTML block. There we go. Now don't freak out. I know it looks like a mess, but if you scroll up to the top of the block, you can switch from HTML to visual by clicking on the preview tab. And that'll switch back and forth between HTML and the visual. Awesome. Look at that. Pretty cool. All right, so now let's preview this in the blog. So once again, click the preview post button in the upper right hand side of the screen. And you'll see that we have our beautifully embedded post, but it's not centered. And I'd also like to add a little space between the post and the content just for readability. So we'll need to make a small adjustment to the HTML and add some spacer blocks. It's super simple. So back at the post, I'm going to go back to the HTML editor by clicking the HTML tab so that I can access the source code of the post. Then to center it, I'm going to add a center opening and closing tag to the embedded code. So here is the opening tag, just center, and it automatically added the closing tag right after that. Go ahead and highlight that closing tag, copy it, and then scroll down to the bottom of the HTML and paste it at the very end of this code. So you're going to scroll all the way down, and right after that closing script tag is where you're going to paste that closing center tag. Then we're going to want to remove that closing center tag that was automatically added. There we go. Just highlight it and delete it. Perfect. And let's go ahead and preview this post. So we'll get out of here really quick. Looks good so far. And then if we scroll down, awesome. Instagram post is now centered. Cool, but I still want to add a little space above and below the Instagram post within the content. Again, just for readability, and I think it looks better. So back at the editor, I'm going to show you another cool way to quickly add blocks to your content. So since I know what I want to add, and that's a new spacer block right after the Instagram post, I can simply go to the paragraph block right above it, click on it, and this opens the toolbar where I will select the three dots to open the more options. And then in that little menu, you have the option to insert a new block before or after the current block. I want to add a spacer block right after, so I'm going to select insert after. Then you'll notice that the circle plus icon is now visible right after the paragraph block. Go ahead and click that, and your block menu will be available once again. There we go. And I'm going to add some space, so I'm selecting the spacer block again. And just like before, I'm setting this to 20 pixels underneath the block settings. There we go. Let's check this out real quick. So we'll preview the post. And that space looks pretty good above the Instagram post. Now I want to add another space block below it. So back at the post, let me show you another cool thing you can do with these blocks. So I'm actually going to duplicate the spacer block I just created. This allows me to quickly add a block with the same settings. That'll save me a ton of time. So I just click on the spacer block to bring up that three-dot menu icon. So hover my mouse over that spacer block, click on it. That'll bring up the icon. Go ahead and click on that for the more options. And then within that menu, just click on duplicate. And that's going to duplicate the block with the exact settings. And once it's duplicated, I'll simply drag and drop it below the Instagram post so that the exact same amount of space is above and below that particular post. Pretty cool feature. And then before we move on, let's add some more text below the post for aesthetic purposes. So I'm just going to add another paragraph block and paste some content. There we go. All right, moving on. Next, I want to show you a cool way to add GIFs within your content. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a GIF is, it stands for Graphics Interchange Format, and it's basically a short animated loop. It's a fun way to add some life to a blog post, and nowadays you can literally find thousands of funny GIFs to add to your blog. The cool thing about this new WordPress editor is that you once again have a ton of creative control over what the GIF looks like within your post. And let me show you what I mean. So first things first, we need to find our GIF. And a popular site for GIFs is Giphy.com. I'll put a link in the show notes, but this site is my go-to whenever I want to find a GIF. Now once you find your GIF, you'll want to grab the source link. So click the media link on the GIF that you've selected, and then copy the link next to where it says source. And then back at the editor, I'm going to add the GIF portion of our content. So I'm just like before, I'm going to add my spacer before the heading. And once again, I'm duplicating this spacer block that I just created. And then I'm going to be adding the heading block. And again, I'm just kind of going through these pretty quickly now since we walked through step by step, but you know, you'll see that you definitely get the hang of it once you start doing it. So we have our heading, GIFs, GIFs, and GIFs. And then my paragraph block. Again, this is where your text would go, where you'd start typing out your content. Perfect. All right, now we're going to get creative. So like I mentioned a little earlier, WordPress is still working out some bugs, and one of those bugs is within the embed block. Now let me show you what I mean. So if we add the embed block and then paste the source link that we just copied from Giphy, you'll see that it doesn't work. So I'm just going to add the embed block. And what the embed block does is it creates a block where all you have to do is add the link, and then it will automatically embed it for you within the post, hypothetically. And as you can see, it's not working right now for this particular link. Now WordPress is working on fixing it, but for now, here's the workaround. So instead of the embed block, you're going to want to add the image block. So let's get rid of this. So click the more options icon and then remove block. That'll delete the entire block. And then we're going to want to add an image block. So click the image tab to open up that block. There we go. And then instead of adding an image, click on the three-dot icon and then select Edit as HTML. And this will bring up the source code of the image block. And this is where we're going to get a little tricky. So I'm going to make a small edit to the HTML code. So next to where it says the opening image tag, IMG, I'm going to add src equals quotations, and then I'm going to paste that source link that I just got from Giphy, and then close it with another quotation mark. And then click the more options icon, and then select edit visually. And you'll see that we now have our GIF as an actual image. And you have on the toolbar option, you can center it. We can also add funny little caption here if we want. I mean, it really is flexible whenever you use the image block this way. Again, you can also adjust the size, scroll up and down. Super cool, super flexible. Really like that. And before I forget, let's add another spacer between the text and the GIF. And again, I'm just going to duplicate the spacer that I just created. So click on the block, select the more options, and then click on duplicate. Then on the left hand, you'll see the arrows appear where you can simply click the arrow and that'll change the location of the spacer. Let's preview this, check it out. Post is looking pretty good so far. There's our new section, and awesome, we got a little space above the GIF. Looks a lot better than if it was directly underneath that content. And again, GIFs are just another way to increase user engagement and add a different type of media within your blog post. Cool stuff. All right, back at the post, I'm going to add another spacer, and then the next heading that we want to add is for our YouTube video. So again, I'm duplicating that spacer block and then adding little text. So we're at a paragraph block. We'll do that one more time. Again, this is just for aesthetic purposes. And remember, I'm duplicating that spacer block, and then I'm going to add my YouTube heading block. And we'll just call this YouTube video. And let me add one more paragraph block just to give it a little more text, easier on the eyes. There we go. Alright, so in this section of the post, I'm going to embed an actual YouTube video. And if we fast forward real quick, you can see it in action. And we'll scroll down. And there's the video embedded within our content. This is yet another way to diversify the type of media that's on your blog post, and it's a great way to showcase your videos if you have a YouTube channel. Alright, so I'm going to add the embed block. Now I know that we have had some bugs with the embed block, but it actually works with the YouTube links. Now there is a YouTube block as well. That doesn't work from my experience. Again, it may be fixed whenever this video comes out, whenever they have the update, but it doesn't work. So I'm using the embed URL. So what we're going to do is you're going to want to go back to the YouTube video that you want to share and click on that share icon underneath the video. And then simply copy that link that YouTube gives you. And then back at the editor, simply paste that link within the embed URL block. Click the embed button, and voila. Now it looks a little funky on the back end, but whenever we preview it, you'll see that it looks and behaves correctly on the live blog. But before we preview it, I want to add a couple spacer blocks before and after the video. So once again, I'm going to add a block after this paragraph block, and then we're going to add the spacer block, and I'm going to set it to 20 pixels. Then I'm going to click on the 3 more options and duplicate that and bring that below the video. So we have 2 spacers above and below the video. Now let's preview this and check it out. And if you remember, it did look a little weird on the back end, but now that we're previewing it, you'll see that it looks and behaves correctly on the live blog. Looks great. All right, moving on. Next, let's add a stylish quote to our post. So once again, I'm going to add the heading for this particular section of our content. Call this quotes. And then again, you'd want to add your paragraph text and start typing. I'm just copying and pasting a few paragraphs of text. And then watch this. So to change the text to a quote, you can do it within the paragraph block. So let's say I want to change this particular block to a quote. I'll click on the block to open the settings toolbar. Then I'll click on the paragraph icon on the upper left-hand side of the toolbar. And this will open up even more settings within the block. This actually gives me the ability to transform the text within the block. So since I want to change it to a quote, I'm going to click on the quote icon. And you'll see that the text has been transformed and formatted to look like a quote. But I want to take it even further. I want to increase the size of the text. So I'm going to click on the little arrow icon in the upper left-hand side of the toolbar. And this gives me even more options once again. And you'll see that there are now block style options for regular and large. I'm going to select large, and this will change the quote's text size. Boom, looks awesome. Then you can even add a citation within the block. I'm just going to say this was written by Blog with Ben. There we go. Awesome. Then I want to add some more spacers before and after this quote. So once again, I'll insert a block after the first paragraph block. And there we go. Insert after. And I'm going to add the spacer block. And don't forget to set it to 20 pixels. And then I'm just going to duplicate this and drag it down below the quote so that it's evenly spaced. There we go. So let's check this out and let's preview it. Yep, there we go. We have our 2 spacers. So let's preview this. Looking good so far. Media gallery, Instagram video posts, our GIF, YouTube video, and our stylish quote. Looks great. All right, moving on. Next, I'm going to show you how to leverage the new editor to conveniently display an opt-in form within your blog's content. This is a great way to build your email list and grow your audience. So for this example, we're going to be using the free email marketing service of MailChimp. Now, I'm not going to walk you through the entire process of creating an account and form, but I do have a video that walks you through that process, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But once you have your MailChimp account set up and you've created a list, you can add an embedded opt-in form to your site by copying and pasting the code from MailChimp. It's a pretty cool feature that will help you get started with building an email list. So before we add our opt-in form, let's add the heading and content for this section. So I'll add my heading block like we did before. And then I'm going to title this Join the Tribe. Oh, but wait, I forgot to add the spacer block before it. Well, let me show you a cool feature of this new editor. So if you make a mistake, they've included an undo and redo button that will erase mistakes or re-add content all you need to do is click the little arrow icon in the upper left-hand side of the screen, and it will undo the changes that you just made. Now, in the same breath, you can also redo those changes if you happen to change your mind by clicking on the other arrow icon right next to it. And you'll see the changes will reappear. It's a pretty robust feature that again gives you a ton of control over your content. So I want to undo this. So I'm going to go ahead and re-undo it. And again, I want to add a spacer block. So I'm just going to duplicate that previous spacer I just made. And then move it down to the right location. Remember, click that arrow, that'll move the spacer block down. There we go. And now I'm going to add my header block. Join the tribe, perfect. And then once again, I'm going to add my paragraph block and some text. And then this is totally optional, but I want to add a small image right below this. So we'll add the image block. And we haven't used this yet, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll add the image block, and then you can either upload an image from your hard drive or add an image from your media gallery. Once you find an image, you'll insert that, and it's automatically there. Perfect. And again, you can add a caption and change the size if you want to. All right, so to add the form to your post, you're going to want to copy the code from MailChimp and then paste it in the custom HTML block within your blog post content. So again, I'm not going to walk you through the entire process of creating the form, but within your MailChimp account, you'll go to the embedded forms section, and it will spit out the code that you need. Simply highlight it, copy it, and paste it back on your blog. So we'll go back to the editor, and then the block that we're going to want to add is the custom HTML block. So again, we're just adding a block like before. Custom HTML. And then we're simply pasting that code that we just got from MailChimp. There we go. Looks a little crazy, but let's go ahead and preview this and check it out so you can see what it'll look like on the blog. So click the preview button. And we'll scroll down to the very bottom of the post. We have our media gallery, Instagram post, our GIF, YouTube video. We have our nice looking quote there. And there we go, perfect. Voila, we now have a beautifully displayed opt-in form within the blog post's content. Amazing. All right, so let's go back to the editor. And one more cool feature I want to show you is that you can actually change the size of the text within each paragraph block. And this comes in handy if the theme's default text setting is a bit small for your taste, like it is in Kale, in my opinion. So back at the editor, simply click on the paragraph block, and then on the right-hand side of the settings toolbar, select M under the text settings, and that'll change the size of the text. Now, you'll notice that the text looks like it shrinks in the editor, but trust me, it doesn't look that way on the blog. So we're going to have to go on each paragraph block. You're going to click on it, and then go to the block text settings and select M. And again, it looks like it shrinks, but trust me, it doesn't. And again, we're going to each paragraph block. Now this is kind of tedious. I don't know if there is a way to do this for, like an overall feature yet. I haven't played around with it that much. I know in the customization menu, some themes allow you to change the overall size of the text, or you can do it through CSS. But again, this is just a cool feature that if you want to do it very quickly for a specific blog post, you can change the text size this way. All right, so once we've done it to each block, let's preview it. And nice. Our text is a little bigger and much easier on the eyes, in my opinion. And then finally, let's not forget about the document settings on the right-hand side of the editor. This should be somewhat familiar because some of these settings were on the right-hand side of the old editor. Either way, here is where you can adjust things like the excerpt for the post. You can allow or disallow comments. You can add categories, tags, and your featured image. You can also edit the Yoast SEO settings if you've installed the plugin. Super convenient, and all in all, a great new feature that is headed to WordPress in a few months. And again, you click that Yoast icon, opens up the settings, and you can edit your snippet, your slug, everything right there. So I'm a fan. I should also mention that if you want to take the editor for a quick test drive, you can do so without installing the plugin by visiting wordpress.gutenberg.org. I'll add the link to the show notes, but if you visit that link, you'll get some hands-on experience with the editor before it's deployed worldwide. And as you can see, this link does a really good job of giving you a full hands-on experience test drive of the new editor and the blocks. Pretty cool feature, and I highly recommend that you check it out before you install the plugin and before the new WordPress 5.0 update. But again, I hope this video helped you out. If you have any questions, any concerns, anything at all, do not hesitate to reach out. Feel free to contact me through my blog or add a comment below this video on YouTube. So that's going to do it for this video. If you found it helpful, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would like, share, and subscribe to the Blog with Ben YouTube channel. As always, your support means a great deal to me and my family, and for that, I thank you. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.